So with XDefiant releasing tomorrow, May 21st, I figured I'd do a video today going over whether or not XDefiant can do the impossible and dethrone Call of Duty, or at the very least be able to compete with it. I've seen a lot of people going around, especially on Twitter, saying that this game is going to be considered, a COD killer, that's going to be the stiffest competition Call of Duty has had in the first-person shooter market for a while. And I'm going to be going over some of the stuff that XDefiant has going for it, and like some of the stuff it needs to improve if it wants to actually be able to compete with Call of Duty in the long term. So to start off with, for those of you that don't know what XDefiant is basically like a hero-like shooter. So think, Overwatch with unique hero abilities for every operator, but the gameplay itself is going to be very much old school Call of Duty, fast-paced arcade action, get in, get out gameplay. The maps are also designed around that. They're very small, like 3-lane maps. They're not too big. They allow for all types of gameplay, snipers, shotguns, pistols, SMGs, assault rifles, all that. And another thing is that the game itself is being developed by an ex-COD dev named Mark Rubin, who worked on the original Modern Warfare from the 360. So, we have a little bit of that COD formula sprinkled into this game that will basically help it feel more like Call of Duty to the people that are going to be checking this game out, the majority being fans of Call of Duty who are, upset and tired of dealing with SBMM, bullshit netcode and hit detection, all that stuff in play because of EOMM and SBMM, skill-based matchmaking. Those types of things have been really sucking the fun out of Call of Duty for a really long time. But the good thing is that XDefiant promises to not offer SBMM, and the matchmaking is going to go back to being old school, how it was, with no bullshit artificial systems in place to try to keep good and bad players, separated. All matches are going to feel organic. Some matches are going to be sweaty, some are going to be really casual, but it's going to allow for all levels of play. And that to me is like a big selling point for this game compared to Call of Duty, because in COD you're doing well one game and then you're getting shit on in the next game, and you can never really find a rhythm because of the bullshit artificial systems they have in play with that game. If you don't know about SBMM and OMM and all that stuff, basically the better you perform in Call of Duty, the harder your competition, the worse your netcode, your hit detection, all that starts getting affected in real time because you're doing too good in the game. The same goes for if you're doing really bad, the game gets easier, your competition gets easier. Basically the game is holding your fucking hand, giving you higher ping and all that. It's artificially rigging matches to or against your favor, and that's none of that is fun. It's completely removing away the player aspect from the game, and XDefiant, they promise to not include that. It's going to be very simple matchmaking that's purely based on ping, how it was back in the old day, where skill and adaptability are just going to come down to the player, and it's not going to be artificially rigged, which is a good thing. So far the game, in terms of like fun factor, seems to be promising to be better than Call of Duty, because it's not going to be artificially changing matches and rigging stuff against you. Now when it comes to the guns themselves, that is definitely an area where XDefiant could improve upon. The guns in game now, I was lucky enough to play both the closed and open. I was the closed beta, closed alpha, sorry, and then the open beta that just happened. And the guns, they felt good. They felt what's the word I'm looking for? They felt heavy. They had impact, but they were missing like that real life authenticity feel that Call of Duty guns have. Like when you're shooting a gun in Call of Duty, the way the gun kicks back and like the recoil and the way it sounds and all the different types of animations that they have going, like those are based off real life guns. You know, they actually went out to the range, shot the gun in real life, and then had professionally trained military soldiers reload the guns and, you know, do stuff with it, as long as take pictures of actual weaponry. And I feel like in XDefiant, you know, the guns, while they do look and, you know, feel good to use, the sound quality is definitely an area where they're lacking. Like, it would have been better had they actually gone out and recorded real life gun sounds and used studio sounds, because you can definitely feel the difference between Call of Duty and XDefiant on that part. So if they were to make improvements on the guns, make them feel a little bit better, that would definitely go a big way in helping. The graphics, even though they're not as hyper realistic as Call of Duty, they're still vibrant. You know, there's plenty of attention to detail. It still, you know, can be considered a next gen game. And one thing in particular that has a lot of people on the fence about this game is definitely the operator skills, you know, the hero system. The gameplay is going to be very much more like Overwatch, where you're going to have certain abilities and certain characters that play specific roles, like support, tank, you know, a DPS, all that. It's not going to be like COD, where, you know, everybody's on the same even playing ground. You're going to have to basically adapt in real time to the abilities and skills that your opponents are using. And that extra level of, you know, strategy thrown into the game can be a good or bad thing depending on the player. Some people, like myself, you know, they don't mind having hero abilities and allowing the player to, you know, basically skill express themselves on the character, while other people that come from Call of Duty might feel, you know, it adds a little too much. They would prefer a much more simpler style of game, you know, without the hero abilities, just run and gun. But I feel like XDefiant does a good job with the diverse class of specialist abilities it offers to have accommodate a play style for basically everyone. So in conclusion, when it comes down to it, personally, do I think Call of Duty will get dethroned by XDefiant, or that it's going to be considered, you know, this giant COD killer that just completely stumps it out? In the grand scheme of things, no. So it's definitely not going to overperform Call of Duty, and sure as shit not gonna be, you know, be able to just overtake it, much less dethrone it. But one thing that XDefiant does have the capability of doing, like I said earlier, is with competing with it. Out of every other game that's come out on the market, XDefiant has the best potential to actually compete with Call of Duty on some level, even if it's just like 1 or 2%. They're able to draw a big enough audience from Call of Duty, since it is being made by a former COD dev, since it does play very similar to Call of Duty, very fast-paced arcade action, you know, it's a high dopamine game that offers a ton of visual feedback. So in that regard, the game could definitely, you know, steal a few sales from COD, but if it wants to have any hopes of being able to overachieve it or pass it, it needs to be able to reach COD's level of, you know, having those hyper-realistic graphics, the guns sounding like real-life guns, going out there in the studio recording those gun sounds, making the movement feel just a little bit tighter. It can feel a bit loose at times when you're sliding or trying to jump. But all in all, I definitely feel this is one of the better shooters that we're going to be having throughout the year. You know, it does feel very much like Call of Duty, and if you're coming from COD to XDefiant, you know, I think you'll find yourself pleasantly surprised. But, you know, don't take my word for it. The game comes out tomorrow, so feel free to go ahead and check it out. It is free to play. You can already go ahead and preload it if you are on PC. But other than that, you know, have a good day.